There comes a moment in your life when you realize that you have been giving too much of yourself away, too many explanations, too many second chances, too many words spent trying to convince people who had already decided not to understand you. You keep knocking on doors that were never meant to open, wondering why your hands are tired. You keep speaking into rooms that have no intention of listening, and then something inside you becomes still, not broken, not defeated. Still, you begin to understand that not every misunderstanding requires a defense. Not every accusation deserves an answer. Not every person who walks away needs to be chased. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is turn your attention away from the noise and bring it home to yourself. Focus on yourself. Stay silent, not because you have nothing to say, but because you finally understand that your life is too precious to be spent explaining its worth. There is a particular kind of strength that arrives when you stop performing for other people. When you stop asking, do they approve of me, and start asking, am I proud of who I am becoming? When you stop measuring your life through somebody else's eyes and begin looking at yourself with honesty, silence becomes different then. It is no longer punishment. It is protection. It is the quiet place where you can hear the thoughts you buried beneath everybody else's opinions. It is where you discover what you actually want, what you will no longer tolerate, and what kind of person you are determined to become. Because sometimes you cannot hear your own heart while you are constantly answering everybody else's voice. So let them wonder. Let them misunderstand. Let them talk. You do not have to attend every argument you are invited to. You do not have to correct every false story told about you. You do not have to prove that you are good to people committed to seeing you as something else. Withdraw your energy. Bother yourself, there is work to do. Your future is waiting for the version of you who finally stopped looking over their shoulder. And perhaps the greatest transformation begins when you become comfortable enough with your own company, that you no longer need applause to continue walking. You become quieter, but stronger. You become less available to chaos and more available to purpose. You stop announcing what you are going to do and simply begin doing it. And one day, the same people who wondered why you became silent will see the answer standing before them, not in an explanation, but in the life you built when you finally chose yourself. There comes a time when you have to stop asking other people to confirm what you already know about yourself. You have spent enough years waiting for someone to recognize your effort, appreciate your heart, understand your intentions, or tell you that you are worthy. But validation is a hungry thing. The more you feed it, the more it asks from you. And if you are not careful, you can spend your whole life standing at the door of someone else's approval, forgetting that you were never meant to live outside yourself. Focus on yourself does not mean becoming cold. It does not mean you stop loving people, caring for people, or listening to people. It means you stop abandoning yourself in order to keep other people comfortable. It means you begin asking a different question. Not, what do they think of me? But, what do I think of the person I am becoming? That question can change everything, because when your attention is always directed outward, you begin measuring your worth through reactions. Your emotional life becomes a mirror held by other people's hands. Take the mirror back. You do not need everybody to understand your journey. When you grow, become disciplined, set boundaries, or stop accepting what once wounded you, they may call you distant. They may say you have changed, and perhaps you have. Perhaps that is the point. Growth should change you. Your energy is a sacred resource. Every hour spent comparing yourself, chasing attention, proving your intentions, or worrying about someone's opinion is an hour removed from your own becoming. Imagine what could happen if you gathered all of that energy and placed it into your work, your character, your dreams, your health, your learning. And your peace, self-focus is not selfishness when it is rooted in responsibility. It is learning from your mistakes without turning them into a permanent identity. It is walking away from environments that keep shrinking you and moving toward places where you can breathe, build, and become. And there will be days when nobody applauds you. There will be people who notice your silence only after they can no longer access the old version of you. Keep moving, because the goal was never to make everyone understand you. The goal was to understand yourself so deeply that you no longer need permission to become who you were meant to be. When you focus on yourself, you stop chasing the world for evidence that you matter and begin creating evidence through the life you choose to live. You become less concerned with being seen and more committed to becoming worthy of your own respect. You learn that quiet progress can be more powerful than public promises, and private discipline can transform a life more completely than applause ever could. And that is where real freedom begins. When your life no longer depends on the applause of others, because you have finally learned to stand firmly within your own truth. There is a power in silence that many people never learn to understand. We are taught to respond quickly, defend ourselves immediately, explain every decision, correct every misunderstanding, and make sure everyone knows our side of the story. But not every situation deserves your voice. Not every accusation deserves your attention. Not every person deserves access to your thoughts. Sometimes silence is not weakness. Sometimes silence is the clearest evidence that you have finally learned to value your peace. When you stop explaining yourself to everyone, something changes inside you. You realize that people who genuinely care about you will not require you to constantly prove your intentions. They will listen. They will ask questions. They will give you room to be human. And those who are determined to misunderstand you will often find another reason to misunderstand you, no matter how carefully you explain yourself. You could give them every detail, every memory, every reason, and every truth, and they could still choose the version of the story that makes them comfortable. So why exhaust yourself? Silence gives you the freedom to step away from unnecessary battles. It allows you to observe instead of react. When someone provokes you, you do not have to answer immediately. When someone tries to pull you into gossip, you can remain quiet. When someone wants an argument simply to feel powerful, you can refuse to participate. Your silence becomes a boundary, and boundaries do not always need announcements. Sometimes the strongest boundary is simply changing your behavior. You stop responding to the message that exists only to disturb your peace. You stop defending yourself against rumors. You stop revealing every plan before it has had time to become real. You stop telling everyone where you are going, what you are building, and what you hope to accomplish. You begin allowing your actions to speak where your words once struggled. This does not mean you should remain silent when something truly matters. There are moments when honesty is necessary, when injustice must be addressed, when someone deserves an explanation, or when communication can repair something valuable. Wisdom is knowing the difference between silence that protects your peace and silence that hides your truth. But there are also moments when speaking only gives chaos more oxygen. You do not have to attend every argument simply because someone called your name. You do not have to answer every criticism. You do not have to prove your heart to someone committed to doubting it. Let your silence create space. Space to think, space to heal, space to recognize patterns, space to hear your own voice beneath all the noise. The more comfortable you become with silence, the less desperate you become for approval. You begin to understand that peace does not always arrive when everyone agrees with you. Sometimes peace arrives when you stop needing them to agree, and when you finally learn to protect your words, your energy, and your attention, you discover that silence is not the absence of power. It is the quiet decision to stop giving your power away. There are battles that make you stronger, and there are battles that simply make you tired. The wisdom is learning the difference. Not every disagreement deserves your attention. Not every provocation deserves a response. Not every person who brings chaos into your life deserves a front row seat to your emotions. Sometimes protecting your peace means refusing to participate in the drama that others keep creating. You have to understand that peace is not something you find after everyone around you becomes reasonable. If you wait for every difficult person to become kind, every argument to disappear, every misunderstanding to be corrected, and every unfair situation to become fair, you may spend your entire life waiting. Peace begins when you decide that other people's behavior will no longer control the condition of your inner world. There will always be someone who wants to pull you into an argument, someone who wants you to explain yourself again, someone who provokes you because they know exactly which words will make you angry, someone who creates confusion and then watches you struggle to clean it up. If you react every time, they gain control over your attention. So pause, breathe a step back. You do not have to answer immediately. Sometimes walking away is not surrender. It is self-respect. It is recognizing that your emotional energy is valuable and refusing to spend it on something that will produce nothing but exhaustion. You can disagree without becoming hateful. You can recognize someone's behavior without becoming consumed by it. You can leave a conversation without proving that you were right. Your peace becomes stronger when you stop trying to win every argument. Think about how much energy is lost in unnecessary conflict. Hours spent replaying conversations in your mind. Nights spent wondering what someone meant. Days spent planning the perfect response. You may physically leave the situation, but mentally you continue living inside it. That is another form of captivity. Release yourself. Not every story needs another chapter. Sometimes you must accept that certain people will never understand your perspective. They may never apologize. They may never acknowledge what they did. They may continue telling their version of the story. And you may have to decide that your healing cannot depend on their confession. You can know what happened without forcing everyone else to know it. You can know who you are without convincing strangers. You can know your intentions without defending them every hour. This is where silence becomes powerful. Instead of reacting, you redirect. Instead of arguing, you build. Instead of gossiping, you grow. Instead of watching what everyone else is doing, you return your attention to your own life. Protecting your peace also means being careful about what you allow into your mind. Not every conversation deserves your presence. Not every social environment deserves your loyalty. Not every relationship deserves unlimited access to you. Sometimes the healthiest decision is not to fight harder, but to step farther away. And when you walk away from unnecessary drama, you create room for something better. You create room for clarity, discipline, creativity, gratitude, and genuine relationships. You begin to notice how peaceful life can become when you stop treating every disturbance like an emergency. Your peace is not something you owe anyone an explanation for, and sometimes the most powerful response to chaos is to quietly remove yourself and continue becoming the person you were meant to be. There is a kind of growth that can only happen when you are alone, not lonely, not abandoned, not forgotten, but alone enough to finally hear yourself without the constant noise of other people's expectations. Solitude can feel uncomfortable at first because it removes the distractions you once used to avoid difficult questions. When nobody is talking, you begin to hear your own thoughts. When nobody is telling you what to do, you begin discovering what you truly want. And when you stop running from yourself, you finally create the space where transformation can begin. Many people are afraid of being alone because they confuse solitude with rejection. They believe that if nobody is around, something must be wrong. But sometimes being alone is not a sign that your life is falling apart. Sometimes it is the season in which your life is being rebuilt. You need moments where you can step away from everybody else's opinions and examine your own life honestly. What are you tolerating that you no longer want? What dreams have you abandoned because someone told you they were unrealistic? What habits are keeping you stuck? What parts of yourself have you neglected while trying to make everyone else happy? Solitude gives you permission to ask these questions, and more importantly, it gives you time to answer them. When you are constantly surrounded by people, you can become addicted to distraction. You stay busy so you do not have to think. You keep talking so you do not have to feel. You keep scrolling, chasing, comparing, and responding because stillness feels unfamiliar. But growth requires stillness. A seed does not become a tree in the middle of a crowd. It grows quietly beneath the surface where nobody can see what is happening. Your transformation may look like nothing to other people in the beginning. You may simply be waking up earlier, reading more, working on your goals, taking better care of yourself, learning to say no, saving money, becoming disciplined, healing old wounds, changing your circle, spending less time explaining and more time building. Do not underestimate these quiet changes. The strongest foundations are often built where there is no applause. Solitude also teaches you something beautiful. You can become your own source of reassurance. You learn how to enjoy your own company without needing constant entertainment or attention. You learn that silence does not have to be empty. It can be full of ideas, reflection, creativity, and possibility. And once you become comfortable with yourself, you become more selective about who receives your time. You no longer choose relationships simply because you are afraid of being alone. You choose people because they add something meaningful to a life that already has meaning. You stop accepting disrespect just to avoid emptiness. You stop holding on to people who repeatedly disturb your peace simply because their absence feels frightening. You realize that being alone for a season can be healthier than being surrounded by people who make you feel alone. So if life has become quieter lately, do not immediately assume something is wrong. Perhaps this silence is giving you something you desperately needed, space to become acquainted with yourself again. Use it. Ride, reflect, plan, create, heal, work, dream, build. Let the quiet strengthen you. Because when you learn to stand comfortably in your own presence, you stop begging others to complete you. And you begin walking through the world with the quiet confidence of someone who knows that solitude was never punishment. It was preparation for the life you are finally ready to create. There comes a point when words become unnecessary because your life begins speaking for you. You no longer feel the need to announce every plan, defend every decision, or tell everyone what you are about to accomplish. You simply begin. Quietly, consistently, patiently. You understand that talking about change can create the feeling of progress without requiring the discipline that real transformation demands. So you stop making promises to the world and start keeping promises to yourself. Let your actions speak. There is something powerful about becoming so focused on your growth that you no longer need people to notice it. You wake up and do the work whether anyone praises you or not. You continue when nobody asks about your progress. You remain disciplined when there is no audience. You keep going because your commitment is no longer dependent on recognition. This is where real strength is built. Anyone can become motivated when people are watching. Anyone can make bold declarations when the excitement is fresh. But character is revealed in the quiet hours, when nobody is there to applaud you. It is revealed when you choose discipline over comfort, patience over frustration, and consistency over temporary excitement. You do not need to tell everyone that you are changing. Change. You do not need to announce that you are becoming stronger. Become stronger. You do not need to convince people that you have learned your lesson. Live differently. Your behavior will eventually tell the story your words could never fully explain. There may be people who remember the old version of you. They may expect you to react the way you once reacted. They may continue treating you according to who you used to be, but you do not have to argue with their expectations. Give them time to witness the difference. Your silence can become evidence. Your discipline can become evidence. Your boundaries can become evidence. Your consistency can become evidence. And eventually, the life you build will speak so clearly that explanations will no longer be necessary. But remember, transformation does not happen overnight. You will have days when you feel tired, days when progress seems invisible, days when you wonder whether your effort is making a difference. Those are the moments when you must remember why you started. A tree does not become strong because it grows quickly. It becomes strong because it keeps growing through seasons that nobody notices. Do the same. Keep building when nobody is watching. Keep learning when nobody is praising you. Keep improving when nobody is impressed. Keep choosing yourself even when nobody understands the choice. You are not responsible for convincing everyone that you are becoming better. You are responsible for actually becoming better. There is freedom in that realization. You no longer need to perform your growth for an audience. You no longer need to post every achievement, explain every boundary, or seek approval for every decision. Your energy can return to the place where it belongs, your own life. And one day you will look back and realize that the person you were trying so hard to explain has disappeared, replaced by someone whose confidence does not need an announcement, whose peace does not require permission, and whose results quietly reveal the truth of everything they chose to become.